Good morning from Melbourne, Australia. Good evening to friends in North America, and hello to anyone watching on replay. My name is Nancy Hetker, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Melbourne, Australia. And today I am going to be recreating a card made by, I believe it's Tammy Hewlett, who is a member of this year's artisan design team for Stampin' Up! And she made a very, very pretty card using the Splendid Day suite. Let me just grab my mini catalog here so you can see what I'm talking about. I have shown you this suite before, I believe. Good morning, Gladys and Roseanne. Hello, nice to see you. Anyway, this is the suite I'm going to use today. It's got some very pretty, sorry, I'm losing my words here. Not floral, but greenery images, and it's all just very soft and pretty. It is in our current mini catalog from July to December. And it was featured in a Stampin' Up! Event for demonstrators about a month ago, and they said that they put this suite into this catalog specifically for those of us here in the South Pacific, where we would be looking ahead to spring instead of particularly wintry themes. So we are very appreciative of that, but it is beautiful to use anytime. So I have prepared some things in advance, and I'll bring in a couple things to show you. I'm going to be working in fresh freesia today, and I have a fresh freesia card base, and then this is some of the paper done in fresh freesia, the Splendid Day Designer Series paper. I'm actually going to be using the matte side, not the foil side today. And then a piece of watercolor paper. And both of these were cut with the new deckled rectangles dies, which are really pretty cool. It's fun to have that jaggedy edge, like it's been torn, but we don't actually have to tear it. So I will be working with this in a moment here, but I took the other half of that piece of paper and I've got it set up in my Stamparatus. And one of the reasons I like my Stamparatus is that it makes it easy to stamp the same thing multiple times, and because the watercolor paper has such a strong texture to it, sometimes you get a better image if you can stamp it multiple times. So I'm going to be stamping both of these at the same time with Versamark. Since they both need to go on and they'll eventually be die cut, there's no reason not to stamp them at the same time. And I'll do that. And, you know, I can't really even see where they are, but I'll probably stamp them. I may stamp them 3 times. I want to be really sure that I get a nice heat embossing. So I want to make sure I've got lots of Versamark on there. I can see it a little bit now. Just because this paper is so absorbent and so textured, we're just going to make sure we've got that on there. And I like to clean off my stamps right away just so I know it's done. Take off the magnets. You probably can't see that. I can just see where the stamping is. I'm going to bring in my heat embossing tools. There we go. There you can see maybe where the there we go. Okay. And I just use this Stampin' Up! Box to help contain any stray embossing powder, because as much as I try, it just goes everywhere. So now I'm going to heat emboss this, and because it's the white on white, you may not see it change so dramatically. I can see that it's turning glossy as the powder melts. I think I have gotten all of it there. Yep. Okay. Set that aside. We will need that again in a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in both of these pieces, because we're going to do a little bit of watercoloring. Yeah, I think those are as useful as the stitched rectangles dies. Okay, so this one has our images stamped on it, and this one is just going to be the plain background. And I can see a smudge of something on there from, I think it'll mostly be hidden and not be a big deal. Sometimes a little mark gets on there from the cut and emboss machine. There we go. And I'm going to bring in one of my water painters. We've got these in a pack of 3, and one's got a very fine tip, one's a very broad tip. I'm going to use, I guess you'd call it the medium tip, the bigger of the two brush tips, but the other one's a brush tip too. It's a flat tip. This one's a round tip. That's what we're trying to talk about here, I think. I have a piece of paper towel here. I keep all of my scraps of my watercolor paper because it's really quite pricey. And I did a test run earlier this morning just to kind of see how the ink worked. When I haven't watercolored in a while, in particular, I like to do that just so I have a feel for it. So I recommend that. I'm going to bring in a large block to use as a palette. And I'm going to start by just tapping my ink pad on there a few times to get a little supply of ink. And I am actually going to go ahead, I'm going to bring my re-inker in, and I'm going to put just a small drop of ink there as well for when I want a little more intense color. And I'm going to make a little pool of water just by squeezing on my brush here. So I've got a little pool of water. My brush is quite wet. So I'm going to come in with some water and pick up a little bit of ink because I want to start with kind of a light wash. And I have to keep moving things to make sure I can see what I'm doing. And I really am making kind of a blob. As I always say, I am not an artist. I don't have technique. I just learn by doing and watching videos of others. So now I've just squeezed out a bunch of water onto here, which hopefully will help the color move a little bit more. Trying to bring in a little more color in there. Okay, I'm gonna let that kind of dry for a minute or so, and I'm gonna bring this in and I'm gonna kind of flood the leaf. I think I'm actually gonna bring in my finer brush for this one. Just making sure my brush is really wet. I'm kind of flooding that space because that will help distribute this color. And one of the nice things that happens with the embossing there is that it helps contain the color. I actually got that quite a bit darker than I really wanted, but that's okay. We'll have some variation. And one reason to use the watercolor paper is that it can handle a lot of water, which lets you get all kinds of great wash tones. Basic white will pill really easily. You can do basically one really quick light wash of color, and that's it. The shimmery white paper, that will handle more. You can do a couple different layers of color on that, but to go over and over and blend and layer, you really need to be using this watercolor paper. Oh, something I noticed on the weekly updates today that I wanted to let you know. If you are in North America or the South Pacific and you start seeing people in Europe talking about the clearance rack being updated, but you don't see anything about it in our markets, that's because Stampin' Up! Has had a shipment of retired catalog product arrive in Europe well past when they had anticipated it getting there. And so they're reducing inventory there, but not in the other markets. So don't feel like we're missing out on something. We just don't have the same offers at the moment. We often don't have exactly the same stuff in each market on the clearance rack. It depends on what the supplies are like in each place. But you'll see European demos talking about an updated clearance rack, and the rest of us don't have it. So I just wanted to give you a heads up if you went, what? Just means that those poor Europeans missed out on a bunch of 2021, 2022 product. When it was current. But we've got plenty of good stuff here now. Okay, I am working my way back up here, intensifying a bit. One thing I have found is if you work in layers, you can intensify. A lot of times if it's, particularly if you've made it quite wet, and you try to add more color while it's still wet, it'll tend to dilute down to the base color. So that's why I set aside my first piece. I'm going to set that aside now and go back to this one and try adding in, I think I'm going to put a little more ink on there. I want my color to be a bit more intense at the bottom. Kind of concentrating here, not chattering. Yeah, I tend to run in streaks. I tend to not do it for a long time, and then I get the bug and I start to do it. And I know other people, they just barely pass a day where they don't pull out their brushes and sit down and do stuff. And okay, I'm going to set that aside again. I may come back and do a little bit more intense down at the bottom again. We'll just see. And I'm going to bring this back in and see about intensifying some color again. touch in there. My problem is usually getting the variation right. I'm pretty pleased with how that's going. So you may have seen I did water, basically uncolored water down at this bottom end, and then I took just a touch of the dark and added it to that little pool of water, and that colored it, but it kept it all right where I had put the water. It didn't bleed out into the rest of the leaf, which I liked. Noah's like, I can hear you in there, and you've locked me out. Why? I locked you out because Glenn is home, and he can look after you while I do this. Just a little more color down there. Okay, let's see what I got going on over here. Lots of detail. I'm trying to do a lot of detail around here. I don't know. if it's to good effect or not. I think sometimes you don't really know what you've accomplished till you put all of the pieces of the card together and see how it works. Try to do a little blending there. Oh, I may have just undone all of my efforts at shading it more. Okay, I think we're going to set that aside again for a minute. I think that's that. Now, the one thing I do want to try to do I'm not always very successful at this. A couple different ways to get speckles. I seem to get them everywhere but where I'm trying. I don't know. I think we're going to call it quits there because I am not very good at that. Okay, cleaning out my brush. Lots of water flowing through. Just wiping it on my paper towel. And I think I'm going to call it good. Take my paper towel, stick it in there, see if I can get that out. There we go. I'm just going to set this aside for a minute. I may come back and pick up a little more ink. See speckles everywhere except I got some on here. That will be good. Okay, I'm going to cut these out. And since the camera's set so close, I'm going to do it over here on the side. One. There's two. Now, I'm going to bring in my other pieces and start seeing how they look. I may decide I need to touch up a little more, do a little more emphasis in places on there. Yeah, so this is going to go like this. And this is going to go like this. And I've got some other bits and bobs that I cut out. Some from the shiny side of the foil. Some from this one from the matte side, so it's cut out of that side. And absolutely, if you want to save paper, because the whole center of this is covered up, you could cut these pieces out of this layer. I just didn't. And then let's see. That's going to go on there, and that's going to go on there. Yeah, I'm going to try to intensify, at least on this one, a little bit. So, bring this back in. I'm being quiet, you guys are being quiet. It's all just silence here, which is fine. What have you guys been up to? Tell me, tell me. I know Roseanne has been hot, hot, hot if you're in Scottsdale. Did I lose everybody? Could be. Got tired of watching me futz with this? That's fine. I'm having fun. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people are headed north to get out of the valley with the heat. I don't blame you. I would definitely be looking to get elsewhere if I were in town, or I'd be sticking to my craft room. I don't know if you saw, I just found a picture of when I set up my craft room 11 years ago in Arizona and put it up on the note makers page. Also, I'm really, really, really excited. There, I'm happier with that now. Because Saturday and Sunday is my first ever stamp camp, 2-day event. And I've got all kinds of fun projects lined up to do. Okay, I am going to start. Oh, I've got one more element to make before I start putting that together. So let's do, oh, and this too. Okay, so I'm going to stamp randomly. Just looking at the comments here. So is your youngest going to University of Arizona for a grad degree, or got a job there, or what is happening with Tucson? Medical school, good for her. So I'm just going pretty randomly here. Double check. June, yep. I'm going to do another little bit over here. Since that'll be seen. Yeah, I'll show you guys the projects and everything next week over on my blog, probably. Yeah. There we go. So, oh, that's right. I was going to make one more element. How good is it they brought the Stamp Buddy back? It is in the mini catalog, along with a powder tray and tweezers and a brush to clean out your powder tray. Now I'm going to stamp this twice just to make sure, since this is a scrap that I won't be keeping. Just yeah, I still have my puff paint from last year, 2 years ago. And I haven't seen anything super compelling to do with the enamel paint yet, but I'm ready to be convinced.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
I wasn't talking to you, Siri.
Okay.
Okay, let's celebrate. I've never had Siri answer me back when I said I wasn't talking to you. But here we go. Okay, paper snips. There we are. And we're doing a little bit of everything on here today. Fussy cutting. And oh yeah. Watercoloring. Stamparatus. I saw, Gladys, I saw on your Facebook page your peaches. Oh my gosh, they look good. See how finely I can get in there? There we go. Okay, let's get this card built. Going to be a little slippery because of the foil on the other side, so let's let that sit there for a minute. And that's good to go now that it's dry. All kinds of speckles on the back side. Yeah. Okay, so in many ways, I wish I had put self-adhesive, the adhesive sheets on the back here, but in a lot of ways, sometimes it's nice to have them kind of free floating up there. So I'm going to try just a couple drops of glue at the thicker parts And because stuff is going to get layered on top, I am going to trust that that will hold it all in place. There we go. See how it's not all stuck down at the very top? I think that's going to be a nice effect. And again with this one. You do want to be really careful because any glue that gets on the front of this foil is going to show. You don't really want that. And now this one is going to have the glue on the shiny side. Yeah, I noticed that some of the vendors at the market have out of season stone fruit. They must import it from the US or somewhere in the northern hemisphere. But I'm really trying to do the sustainability thing and not contribute to shipping grapes and peaches and such from the other side of the world to Australia. So we're eating a lot of citrus and apples and pears that are grown here. Which is also good stuff. I think citrus had an off year last year, but man, it's good this year. What am I doing here? Got one in the wrong place. There we go. That's better. Okay, and now one more glue bit. There we go. There's that part. And bring in a little bit of baker's twine. And the glue dot. Oh yeah, I haven't picked peaches before. Apples, yes. Cherries, yes. Strawberries, yes. Getting a little bit of dimensional for that. Oh my goodness, there we go. That, I think, is that. Looking at it in the camera here on the screen. What do you think? I'm pretty pleased with how that turned out. I hope you like it. See if I can get it to focus a bit better. There we go. So, yeah, that's what I have for you today. Thank you for joining me. I hope you'll come back and see me again next week, same time, same place. Yeah, look for me to post stuff from my stamp camp next week. If you have any questions about anything, let me know either beforehand or during the session next week, and I'd be happy to answer questions. Oh, no, I know what I forgot. It needs more bling, right? Here we go. So these are the 21 to 23 in color opal rounds. So let's add a couple of those in Fresh Freesia. Goodness. What do you think? Okay. There we go. Okay. I will see you next week. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.